the seasons aren't equal. Didn't you know? Or so says modern science. I was surprised the other day. I was having some thoughts, some realization about the simplicity of what 365.24 is, or what's behind that, and tried to understand that. And you know, that duration of time is only the amount of time it takes for the seasonal cycle to complete itself, or it's known as the tropical year in scientific terms. It's the amount of time it takes for the sun to, as it appears in the sky, it moves north and south and south and north, and that's what gives us our seasons, if you remember from grade school. The Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Anyway, so I decided to Google to see how long the seasons are, and from what I'm seeing, it seems modern science is claiming the seasons are not equal. And I just found that surprising, and I'd like to know what other people think about that, because I know if you believe in the Enoch calendar, or if you're into the Zadok calendars, or other calendars like this, you know, they're so-called solar calendars, and they may have their differences, and hopefully we'll all work together to figure out what is truth, but those all, I was under the impression that they all kind of depended on the seasons being equal. Like, certainly this is what's described in Enoch, and also I believe that's what was described in the Dead Sea Scrolls for the Zadokite calendars out there. Like, I'm pretty sure the days of remembrance are defined as the heads of the seasons in those camps, and you know, for it to be the head of the season, it's supposed to be the first day of spring, first day of summer, first day of fall, first day of winter. Or the days of remembrance were supposed to be the days following the first day of the season or something. But anyway, or maybe it was the first day of the season, because, well, Enoch seems to describe the sign, the solar sign, lunar sign, star sign, whatever. The luminary signs kind of proclaim the end of the season, and so the day following the signs is the first day of the season, so maybe that's what's going on with. But anyway, these days of remembrance, so I mean, but I found that really odd, and I've never heard that before. I've never cared to really think about it from modern science's standpoint, but it seems like they're claiming the seasons are not equal, and that kind of seems to throw a wrinkle in everybody's, well, at least the Enoch and Zadokite Dead Sea Scroll calendar camps, I think. And I'd like to see if anybody has some thoughts on that. Of course, we're doing ongoing studies to, you know, try and actually measure the movements of the luminaries, and I do think there's enough evidence to show modern science can't quite have it exactly right. For example, the straight line pattern is something that a bunch of truth seekers did for the spring equinox, past spring equinox 2019, and they were able to see, everyone was able to, around the earth seemed to be able to see the straight line pattern, and it doesn't seem that should be possible. For example, in Stellarium, I believe, has the sun programmed to move. It's constantly shifting north and south, but if the straight line method is true, then it seems the sun must have had to hold its course in a specific chariot, or I don't know how to describe that, but in a certain, the north-south movement paused for a day, and to give this special sign for people to see a straight line pattern. So, I mean, I don't believe Stellarium's programmed for that. It's kind of just a linear progression, and there's no shifting for these, what I've been calling sign days. But it's just interesting. I mean, I do think I'm interested to see if this is true and to look more deeply into it, what modern science says and what these people are saying to have calculated the seasons to have different durations. But if anyone ever has any other thoughts out there, let me know. Because the thing is, potentially, like I've said in other videos, like the summer solstice, winter solstice, spring equinox, fall equinox are like, theoretically, we're supposed to be like quarter points of the year, according to Enoch. And I mean, I think there's no doubt that we can establish what a solstice event is, because everyone's going to see the sun hit an extreme and then return. But I have my doubts about predicting the equinox event, because it seems all the methods out there are kind of based upon specific angles, or sighting in on the North Star, which moves, or what are some of these other methods? Well, the straight line method, like, I don't know if that works for everywhere, or maybe just over the equator. But there's no guesswork about the solstice event. I think everyone will see the sun hit its extreme mark and start to return. The equinox events, however, are not I don't see how you can possibly be certain about the timing of an equinox event unless you first figure out when the solstice events occurred, summer and winter, and then the day exactly between those should theoretically be the equinox event. And so the test would be to see what signs do you see on the equinox event. Only then could you actually measure the angle to confirm that is the theoretical angle. We're going to be doing ongoing observations to try and see what's going on, but I just found that really odd, and I wonder if the calculations, if they think the seasons aren't equal because of the equinox events. Like, I have this theory that if I look at they might say the seasons aren't equal, but I'm going to guess that the solstice events are equal. Like, it's the spring and it's the equinox events that might be throwing things off, but I'm going to bet that the timing of the summer solstice event and the timing of the winter solstice event, if they have anything right, I'm guessing they might have that right. Just because it's easy to confirm. There are no questions about the shape of the Earth or angles or straight lines or any of this stuff. You're just going to see the shadow hit an extreme position and start to return. So I'm thinking they might have that right, and it's going to be consistent is the thing. Like, I think it will be equal time. My theory is it's going to be equal time between solstice events, but it might not be equal time between equinox events. That's my theory. I recap all of that. What I'm saying is, preliminarily, I find it hard to believe that the seasons aren't equal, and I think modern science might be saying they aren't equal because they are misunderstanding what defines the seasons. And so I think I'm gonna look into this, but I think it's possible modern science might say the seasons without knowing it. I think they might have even spacing between the solstices, so half years, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I'm thinking those have probably got to be consistent. I mean, the data I was looking at online, they were saying the seasons were off by like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 days, like, or something. It was just like, what? Really? So I mean, I have a feeling they might have the solstice to solstice, half year, 2 seasons, I think is going to be equal, or should be equal. And I mean, they might be off by like half a day or a day because they're misunderstanding the sign day, the duration of a sign day, but that's my guess. And I think they're off with the equinoxes just because they don't understand when the season is supposed to begin. And so, I mean, what I'm thinking is the seasons really are equal, despite what modern science says, but they just don't understand. Like, who are they to say, what defines the season. And when was the last time they actually, measured it? I've been searching for measurements on the durations of the years and the seasons, and I cannot, for the life of me, find anything in this modern day where there is some scientific person is actually measuring. They're all theoretically calculation based, and I stayed up till midnight the other night, which is late for me, just trying to find some data to back up the tropical year, and it seems like it's all based off of this theoretical stuff. And it's when was the last time somebody actually did some observing to verify this? And not the sidereal stuff based off of stars. Let's just ignore the stars and let's look at the sun. The sun it's going to hit the Cancer, the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Let's measure it. The shadow's going to return. Let's measure it. As far as the equinox goes, what can you measure? It's kind of like this game that I think they can play about the placement of the equinox, because what are you basing it off of? You're saying their seasons are unequal? Are you just making all this up? Where's the data? Where's the observation? Let's forget about the calculations for a minute and just try and collect some data. But anyway, that's all I got for now. Food for thought. Shalom. Let me know your thoughts. Maybe we can figure this out together. If you're aware of any kind of actual observational data that somebody has been performing in the modern science world, I'd love to hear about it. One more thought with regards to the timing of the equinox and what modern science says. Like I said, with the solstices, it should be clear. The sun is going to hit its extreme and return. In the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn. We don't need to look at the stars. But for the equinox and this uneven seasons, the game that I think is going on with that might be that they're trying to make some kind of alignment with the stars, and they're saying this has to be the start of the season because we're trying to do some sidereal alignment with the stars. It's not the same as the solstice. The solstice doesn't matter about the stars. Forget about the stars. We're just going to measure when the shadow starts to return. It's going to hit an extreme and it's going to start to return. As far as the equinox goes, I think this might be one of the reasons why the seasons are different and they're shifting or whatever, is because of the timing of the equinox and how they're saying that's supposed to happen, and they're trying to get it to match up with a certain star, like this sidereal time. Their reference point is a moving star. And I'm looking forward to looking into the stars more now that I have a better understanding of this 365.24 and where that's coming from potentially. It's really opened my eyes to seeing things differently. And so it seems the cycle or the speed of the stars must be something other than that, which is unique. Which actually makes me wonder, really, I'm going to have to think about how to prove that. But, so if those cycles aren't matching, then there is some kind of voodoo going on their part, where they're picking a star alignment instead of for the solstice, when we're watching the sun hit an extreme point, no question about it, no stars involved, it just hits the point and returns. That's going to be a clear year and half-year marker to make some measurements about the year. But the equinox is trickier, and I'm going to have to look into it to see how they're actually measuring it. But something tells, I've got a gut feeling from what I can remember I looked into it. I feel like the measurements they make are these sidereal star measurements, and no one's actually, it's not based off of something like the solstice, where you're actually watching and referencing the movement of the sun with respect to some kind of fixed object on Earth, which is something you should be able to do if trying to understand the seasons, the tropical year. You don't have to you don't have to look at the stars, man. I just don't think you do. But maybe this theory of mine can be disproved if when I look closely at the data, there is actually not an equal amount of spacing between the solstices. And that could go for either what modern science has to say about it, or when we do our own observations, if we end up coming up with some durations of time between the solstice events that are not equal, then that might disprove that theory. But it could also have to do with the duration of a sign day. But I don't know. I mean, in the back of all this, I'm still thinking something about Enoch has to be correct. I mean, consistent solar months, equal solar seasons, like, you know, uneven months is a Gregorian calendar thing. That's like, you know, Julius wanted one extra day in his month, and October wanted one, you know, I'm sure you're familiar with that. So anyway, I thought the solar months and the solar seasons were supposed to be equal, and modern science is saying they're not, and I'm wondering how they're actually coming up with that. I'm going to be looking into it, and I hope you do too, and let me know your thoughts, and we'll try and figure this out together. Alright, shalom, and may all be blessed as you continually seek out His truth and love with your pure heart.